Nostalgia is a really strange emotion. Sometimes it makes me feel happy, sometimes it makes me feel sad, and often it's both at the same time. It's weird because these feelings should probably cancel each other out, but they don't. They just exist together. A word I also describe myself with is saudade. This is actually a Portuguese word, but I think it applies greatly to me. It is a deep, melancholic emotional state of nostalgic longing for an absent person, place, or thing that is deeply loved. I first started really noticing nostalgia hit me around high school. I think that's probably when a lot of people begin to feel it for the first time. Life starts getting more serious, more structured, and there's this growing expectation that your time and energy should be focused on responsibilities, school, and planning for the future. I don't remember every detail of how high school felt in the moment, but looking back, I can imagine there were times when things felt overwhelming. And in those moments, it's natural to think back to being a kid when life felt simpler and you didn't really have all that pressure. That's where that feeling comes from, the desire to return to something easier. During high school especially, with things like college pressure starting to build, I often just wanted to come home, sit down, and play Pokémon the same way I used to when I was younger. Even though I still played Pokémon during that time, it felt a little different. It almost felt like I shouldn't be doing it, like I was supposed to be focusing on something more productive for my future, though that didn't really bother me too much. I also played other games like Halo with friends, and that felt different too. There was a social aspect to it, but Pokemon was something I played alone starting with black and white versions, and I think that's part of why it felt more personal. Looking back, I realize I probably needed that time to myself. Everyone does. I just didn't really understand that back then, or at least I didn't think it was something I was allowed to prioritize. Then came college, and things became even more stressful. Responsibilities increased, expectations increased, and that nostalgic feeling only got stronger. Around that time, I started leaning back into things from my childhood even more. I began collecting Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards again, replaying older games, and even started making videos about them. That was kind of my way of trying to understand and manage the feeling. I wouldn't say I fully controlled it yet, but I was starting to recognize it. High school nostalgia hits you in a very raw way. You don't really know what it is at first, you just feel it and react to it. For me, that reaction was usually just going back to the things I loved as a kid, but Pokemon was at least always a constant. By college, I started to understand it more clearly. I began recognizing what nostalgia actually was, why I was feeling it, and why certain memories kept coming back. I learned to accept that it wasn't just something negative or something I needed to fix. It was just an emotion. Sometimes it felt good, sometimes it felt sad, but neither version was necessarily wrong. After my college days, though, the feeling changed again. In some ways, it became even stronger. For the first time, there was no school anymore. No next semester, no new classes, no built-in structure making time. For basically my entire life, every end of August meant a reset. A new school year. New teachers, new classmates, new routines. Even if the changes were small, there was always something new ahead. But after college, that stopped. There wasn't a next chapter being automatically handed to me anymore. It was just life. That shift is hard to put into words. It felt like something was missing even though technically nothing was wrong. There just wasn't that built-in sense of what's next anymore. And I think a lot of people feel that after graduating, especially in that late summer, early fall period, when everything used to feel like a new beginning. Around that time, nostalgia can feel pretty heavy. It's easy to look back and feel like everything important already happened in the past, but over time, I started to reframe it. I remember first hearing the word solace when I was really young but didn't think about what it meant or anything. A friend of mine showed me a song and it used that word. I didn't even know what it meant at the time, so I looked it up at some point in the future. It basically means finding comfort during difficult or emotional moments. At some point, I started connecting that idea to nostalgia, because when I felt nostalgic, I wasn't just sad about the past, I was also finding slight comfort in it. Playing old games, looking at old cards, or remembering past moments didn't just make me miss things, it also made me feel grounded in the present. That's when it started to click for me. Nostalgia isn't just loss, it's also comfort. Over the past few years, I've gotten better at understanding and handling it. And I think that applies to most emotions in general. You don't always need to fight them or suppress them. You just need to understand what they are and let yourself feel them without letting them take over. Being happy works that way. You allow yourself to enjoy good moments. Being sad works the same way. You allow yourself to feel it when it comes without pretending it isn't there. Nostalgia is similar. It comes and goes, and sometimes you just have to let it exist without letting it control you. There were definitely periods, especially after college, where nostalgia felt overwhelming. It could feel heavy or even a bit consuming at times, but the important part isn't avoiding it. It's understanding why it's happening and keeping it from taking over everything else in your life. Now, I think of nostalgia as something natural. We're always going to look back at simpler times and feel like things were easier, but that doesn't mean the present is worse, it just means it's different. Even when I was a kid, I remember wanting to grow up faster, so it goes both ways. We always tend to think the past was simpler, but we forget that every stage of life has its own challenges. One thing I've thought about is how one day I'll probably look back on my current life and feel nostalgic for it too. That's kind of the cycle of it. In a way, that also gives the present more meaning. It makes you realize that this moment will eventually become a memory you miss. Another way I've thought about dealing with nostalgia is through the idea of family. I'd want to give my kids a childhood that feels just as meaningful as mine did. That idea gives me something to look forward to and helps turn nostalgia into motivation instead of just a longing. I also think about how I'd want them to remember their childhood clearly, maybe even through journaling or something similar. I didn't do enough of that growing up, and I think having those records would make those memories even more vivid later in life, as they do for me now for journal entries I've made 8 to 10 years ago. Even now, I still play Pokémon. It's not the same as when I was a kid, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be as much as I wish it was. The experience changes, but it's still enjoyable. You don't have to perfectly recreate the past to appreciate something from it, though most of the time I still feel that way. I think a lot of this also stems from the best friends in my neighborhood that I had growing up with, who I really don't talk to anymore. How much easier life was with no responsibilities and things of that nature. There's a kind of pressure sometimes to try and relive childhood exactly as it was, but that's not really possible. And instead of chasing that, it's better to just enjoy things for what they are now. Even seasons trigger nostalgia for me, fall in particular. Every August and September used to mean a new school year, so now that time of the year still carries that same feeling of something beginning again for me. The colder air, the leaves changing, the sound of wind moving through trees, it all brings back memories. Sometimes I'll just sit outside during that time of year, drink something warm, and play an old game. Mostly Pokemon generations 1 through 3. Not trying to recreate the past, just appreciating the feeling it brings in the present. And in those moments, nostalgia doesn't feel overwhelming. It feels peaceful, like I'm acknowledging the past while still being fully in the present. To sum it all up, nostalgia is a mix of happiness and sadness. It can hit in waves, sometimes both at once. It makes you miss the past, but it can also help you appreciate it. And more importantly, it doesn't have to be something you fight against. You can accept it, you can feel it, and you can still move forward. Because nothing lasts forever, and that's exactly what makes moments meaningful in the first place. And I think the simplest way to put it is this: don't be sad that it's over, be happy that it happened. Take care, everyone.